win. So what will all of us learn? Well, that remains to be seen. The Congress issued a non-binding resolution, meaning it doesn't have any real effect, but it was unanimous, 420 to nothing, to make the Mueller report as it stands public. And the president just on Wednesday, so day before yesterday, spoke out on that matter as well. Listen.
Let it come out. Let people see it. That's up to the Attorney General. We have a very good Attorney General. He's a very highly respected man, and we'll see what happens. But it's sort of interesting that a man out of the blue just writes a report. But I want to see the report, and you know who want to see it? The tens of millions of people that love the fact that we have the greatest economy we've ever had.
So what will the report entail? That we do not yet know. We know that if there are indictments contained within, that sort of information would indeed become public. Of course, there's been long-standing guidance through the Justice Department that a sitting president cannot be indicted. If Robert Mueller follows along with that and has nothing to report on the president, it's possible that the Mueller report can contain very little, if anything, on that matter. Remember, the instruction was find out about Russia's meddling in the 2016 election, whether there was any collusion on the part of the Trump campaign or President Trump himself. Of course, collusion isn't a legal term. The legal term would be conspiring with a foreign government, just by way of example, to interfere with the United States election or any other part of the United States activities as a government. So was there collusion or was there some sort of conspiracy? And were any of the members of Team Trump involved? You'll remember that there have been many indictments so far. The Mueller investigation has either gotten indictments or guilty pleas against a number of entities, more than 36 included, 3 countries, I should say 3 Russian companies, and a number of associates of the president. In fact, 6 former associates of the president have either been indicted or pleaded guilty on multiple charges surrounding the investigation into the Mueller probe. Let's get to Capitol Hill now. Fox News chief congressional correspondent Mike Emanuel is there. The news broke at the top of the hour, 5 o'clock Eastern time, just as so many had speculated that it would today, Mike.
No question about it, Shep. We've been waiting on it for, basically sensing that this could be the day for quite some time. All the body language seemed to be here in Washington that this was the case. We know from our colleague Jake Gibson at the Justice Department that the report was transmitted to Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein just before 4:45 or so this afternoon, brought to the Attorney General William Barr, and then we know that notification was sent to the ranking and the chairs of the relevant committees on Capitol Hill, basically notifying them that Special Counsel Robert Mueller was done with his report. Those people being Lindsey Graham, the Republican senator, chairman of the Judiciary Committee, ranking member Dianne Feinstein of California, the top Democrat. In the House, Gerald Nadler, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, and the top Republican Doug Collins of Georgia. And so that's the way you expect it to go, basically to be transmitted in a very efficient way. To Robert Mueller's credit, not much has leaked out from this, so we don't know exactly what is in there. And so you have the brand new Attorney General William Barr going through it, signaling that he may be able to release some of this over the course of the weekend. So it'll be around the clock here in Washington throughout the weekend. And then the question for lawmakers on Capitol Hill is how much is in there? There's been a great deal of time and energy put into investigating a lot of different things throughout this time period. Not much has leaked out. And so there's great anticipation about what is in there. We know the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said she doesn't want to talk about impeachment at this point. A lot of people on the liberal side of things want to know, is she ready for impeachment? She says we have to see what's in the Mueller report. That's what we've heard from a lot of the Democratic leaders on Capitol Hill. How serious is it? Are Republicans alarmed by what's in it? At that point, then perhaps they would consider going forward with something like that. But bottom line, Nancy Pelosi and a lot of veteran Democrats on Capitol Hill recognize that when Republicans went forward with impeaching President Clinton, his popularity numbers went up in a lot of respects, and Republicans were blamed for overreaching in some respects. And so basically the perspective of a lot of the Democrats on Capitol Hill is like, let's take a wait and see. Let's find out what Robert Mueller has found. They have a lot of respect for him, and soon we will get to see what's in that report.
Mike, thank you. We are now in receipt of the Attorney General Bob Barr's letter to Lindsey Graham, Jerry Nadler, who is the Democrat in charge, and Doug Collins. And here are some quotes from that letter. Special Counsel Robert S. Mueller III has concluded his investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 election and related matters. Barr also says that he, quote, may be in a position to advise you of the special counsel's principal conclusions as soon as this weekend. Now, the you in this case is not the American public. It's those men I just mentioned, Lindsey Graham, Dianne Feinstein, Gerald Nadler, and Doug Collins. One more quote from this. Separately, I intend to consult with the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and the Special Counsel Bob Mueller to determine what other information from the report can be released to Congress and the public consistent with law, including the Special Counsel regulations and the department's longstanding practices and policies. So, what's happened? The Mueller report has been delivered. Now, they're working to inform members of Congress. Keep in mind, though, even though this report is complete, so many parts of this investigation continue and are still active and ongoing. For instance, there are new questions from recent court documents that led people to believe that investigators are still looking into why the former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort gave some campaign polling data back around the time of the election to a Russian man whom prosecutors say was tied to Russian intelligence. In addition, Bob Mueller has looked very closely into whether the Trump campaign or President Trump himself obstructed justice to protect anyone. Most of those who have been convicted so far or pleaded guilty did so regarding matters of lying. Bob Bianchi is on the phone now. He's a legal counsel, former prosecutor, criminal defense attorney who works with us on legal matters during our afternoon programming on the Fox News channel on cable. He's with us now on the phone. Bob, what would you expect to see next?
Shep, I'm kind of flabbergasted by what you just announced with regard to what the Attorney General is putting out there with regard to giving information about conclusions to both Democrats and Republicans, even though it may be confidential, and that he's consulting with the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and the Special Counsel Mueller as to what they believe legally can be given to the public or not. I think that's the most extraordinary development of all this. In other words, what that says to me is I want to make this as transparent as is legally possible. I think that's amazing. And in addition to what you said, let's not forget there are so many moving pieces to this, including the Southern District of New York's cases.
Bob, I was going to get into that next, because during the course of this investigation, the Special Counsel Bob Mueller, for whatever reason, and there are a number that we could come up with, and I'll ask you to delve into some of those possibilities, but he has farmed out a number of these cases to separate jurisdictions. For instance, the Southern District of New York, that's a separate court in Lower Manhattan, and a court in Northern Virginia. The reason for doing that sort of thing, Bob, would be what?
Well, it's not going to the central role of what his mission was. But, you know, there's been a lot bandied about this, Shep, about, oh, it's a witch hunt or the investigation started here and now it's going there. But what happens in every prosecution, state and federally, throughout this country, day in and day out, is if you are investigating a matter over here and you find out crimes are being committed over there, you refer it to those agencies so that those agencies can investigate those things. And what seems to be clear to me, and when you put the picture together, which seems pretty transparent in my mind, is that they were finding areas of criminality that were outside the scope of the special counsel's responsibilities, like, for example, with Michael Cohen. So it gets referred to the Southern District to say, hey, FYI, while we were investigating over here, we found out this data of potential crimes being committed in your jurisdiction, and since that's not what my charge is as the special counsel, we're giving it to you to prosecute, investigate, and prosecute.
In the courts so far, Bob, the evidence that the special counsel has been able to put together has held up very well and produced a number of prosecutions.
Yes. Listen, no prosecutorial agency. I know that people look at this the flip side of this, but having been a person who ran an agency, when you're dealing with political figures and people of high level and importance, you are not out there dancing on the head of a pin trying to find technical violations of law. You understand there's a huge ramification to go after those people for the very reason that your credibility may come under scrutiny, that you may be going after them for political reasons as opposed to proper prosecutorial reasons. The cases that they are referring are chock full of evidence. They're clear crimes. Their success at getting convictions and pleas to these crimes and convictions, when you look at Manafort, are very front and center. They're doing a great job. These are not specious or, technical crimes. These are real crimes being committed. And one would have to ask a rhetorical question, because I dealt with it many times as the boss of an agency myself. If we don't prosecute, is it fair to those who we do prosecute for lesser crimes? These are serious crimes that have been investigated, and the record has been sterling so far.
So far, every person involved who is not still waiting for trial has been either convicted or has pleaded guilty. And I say that because so far, Bob Mueller has come up with what is clearly a tentacles of lies that have either been prosecuted or pleaded guilty to by a number of Trump associates in past weeks and months.
Yeah, and I would expect, Shep, I've said this before, watch the sealed indictment start to roll. I believe if it were me, tactically speaking, if I were Bob Mueller during the course of not knowing whether I was going to have my job from one moment to the next moment, being concerned about interference in my investigation, the firing of Comey, when you add all of those things together, I am going to do what I need to do to insulate my investigation to ensure that if any funny business occurs, we're going to be able to let the public know. So I am really curious about what we're told could be up to 24 sealed indictments. To me, this means gone to the grand jury. They're not playing ball. In other words, these people aren't cooperating. They're high-level targets. I have some names in my mind as to who they could be, and they're done that way so that at this point, now that the report, he's been able to do his job, Mueller, he's been able to get his report out there. Watch how these indictments start to get unsealed, and I think they're going to be some very high-level people.
Bob Bianchi, legal analyst, thank you. The comprehensive report, which is still confidential, marks the end of the Mueller probe here this afternoon, but it does set the stage for very big public fights to come. The next steps are up to Trump's Attorney General, to Congress, and in all likelihood, federal courts. To that end, I want to show you a tweet that just came in from the president's spokesperson, Sarah Sanders. She writes by Twitter, the next steps are up to Attorney General Barr, Bob Barr, and we look forward to the process taking its course. The White House has not received or been briefed on the special counsel's report. There had been speculation about whether the White House was wanting to see this report before it went to Congress. There was a suggestion that they did, but now the White House is saying we've not received this report. We've not been briefed on the special counsel's report. Now we know that that report has been completed. The Justice Department said Bob Mueller delivered his final report to the Attorney General Bill Barr and officially concluded his probe of Russian election interference and possible coordination with Trump associates. The report will now be reviewed by Bob Barr, who has said he will write his own account communicating Mueller's findings to the Congress and to the American people. Attorney General Barr said he could send this account to Congress quickly. Quoting now, I'm reviewing the report and anticipate that I may be in a position to advise you of the special counsel's principal conclusions as soon as this weekend. Again, that was in that letter that he sent to top Republicans and Democrats on the House and Senate Judiciary Committees. So, as the Associated Press puts it, with no details released at this point, we really don't know whether Mueller's report answers the core questions of this investigation. Specifically, did Trump's campaign collude with the Kremlin to sway the 2016 presidential election in favor of the celebrity businessman? Also, did Trump take steps later, including by firing his FBI director, to obstruct the probe? But the delivery of the report does mean that the investigation has concluded without any public charges of a criminal conspiracy between the campaign and Russia or of obstruction by the president. It is unclear what steps Bob Mueller will take if he uncovered what he believes to be criminal wrongdoing by President Trump in light of the Justice Department's legal opinions that have held that sitting presidents may not be indicted. Of course, the mere delivery of a confidential report will set off immediate demands, including in the Democrat-led House, for full release of Mueller's findings. Bob Barr has said he wants to make as much as possible public, and any efforts to withhold details will prompt a true tussle between the Justice Department and lawmakers who may subpoena Mueller and his investigators to testify before Congress. Such a move by Democrats would likely be vigorously contested by the Trump administration. The conclusion of Mueller's investigation does not remove legal peril for the president. Far from it. President Trump faces a separate Justice Department investigation in New York into the hush money payments during the campaign to two women who say they had sex with him years before the election. He's also been implicated in a potential campaign finance violation by his former lawyer, Michael Cohen, who says President Trump asked him to arrange the transactions. Federal prosecutors, also in New York, have been investigating foreign contribution made to the president's inaugural committee. So that is a separate matter. No matter the findings of this report, which has just been delivered, the investigation has already illuminated Russia's assault on the American political system, painted the Trump campaign as eager to exploit the release of hacked Democratic emails, and exposed lies by Trump's aides aimed at covering up their Russia-related contacts. Over the 21-month investigation, which is now over, Bob Mueller has brought charges against 34 people, including 6 aides and advisors to the president, plus 3 companies. The special counsel brought a sweeping indictment accusing Russian military intelligence officers of hacking the Democrat Hillary Clinton's campaign and other Democratic groups during the 2016 election. He charged other groups of Russians with carrying out a large-scale social media disinformation campaign against the American political process that also sought to help Trump and hurt Clinton. Closer to the president, Bob Mueller secured convictions against a campaign chairman who cheated banks and dodged his taxes, a national security advisor who lied about his Russian contacts, and a campaign aide who misled the FBI about his knowledge of stolen emails. Michael Cohen, the president's former lawyer and fixer, pleaded guilty in New York to campaign finance violations arising from the hush money payments and in the Mueller probe to lying to Congress about a Moscow-related real estate deal. Other Trump confidant, specifically Roger Stone, is awaiting trial on charges that he lied about his pursuit of Russian-hacked emails ultimately released by WikiLeaks. At this moment, it is unclear whether any of the aides who have been convicted, all of whom have pleaded guilty and cooperated with the investigators, might angle for a pardon. President Trump has left open the idea of pardons. Along the way, Trump's lawyers and advisors repeatedly evolved their public defenses to deal with the onslaught of allegations from the investigation. Where once President Trump and his aides had maintained that there were no connections between the campaign and Russia, by the end of the probe, President Trump's attorney Rudy Giuliani was routinely making the argument that even if the two sides did collude, it wasn't necessarily a crime. The goalpost shifting reflected the administration's challenge in adopting a singular narrative to fend off the accusations. Equally central to Mueller's role is his inquiry into whether the president tried to obstruct the investigation. Since the special counsel's appointment in May of 2017, President Trump has increasingly tried to undermine the probe by calling it a witch hunt and repeatedly proclaiming there was no collusion with Russia. But President Trump also took certain acts as president that caught Mueller's attention and have been scrutinized for possible obstruction. 1 week before Bob Mueller's appointment, President Trump fired the FBI director Jim Comey, later saying that he was thinking of the Russia thing at the time. He mercilessly harangued the Attorney General Jeff Sessions at the time for recusing from the Russia investigation 2 months before Mueller was named the special counsel, a move that left the president without a perceived loyalist atop the probe. And he helped draft a misleading document, a misleading statement on Air Force One as a Trump Tower meeting between his eldest son and Kremlin-connected lawyer was about to become public. That meeting itself became part of Mueller's investigation, entangling Donald Trump Jr. in the probe. Mueller's team also interviewed the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, multiple times. Even as President Trump blasted Mueller's team, his White House and campaign produced thousands of documents for the special counsel, and dozens of his aides were interviewed. The president submitted written answers to Mueller regarding the investigation, but he refused to be interviewed and never was interviewed in the Mueller probe, which ended just 30 minutes ago. Now, here's the chief intelligence correspondent, Catherine Herridge, with a look back at how the Russia investigation has unfolded.
He unfortunately had to fly back to Washington unexpectedly.
On May 9, 2017, President Trump fired FBI Director James Comey while he was traveling in California. The White House released a memo from Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to justify Comey's termination. Media accounts later portrayed Rosenstein, just 2 weeks into his job overseeing the Russia probe, as badly shaken. With Comey out, Andrew McCabe took over as acting FBI director. May 16th, Robert Mueller, who was FBI director after 9/11, interviewed with President Trump and Rosenstein to replace Comey. The following day, Rosenstein appointed Mueller as special counsel, writing his responsibility is, quote, to ensure a full and thorough investigation of the Russian government's efforts to interfere in the 2016 election. New documents, testimony, and text messages show that the 10 days following Comey's firing are a pivotal period when senior FBI and DOJ officials apparently pushed back against the White House. Rosenstein, McCabe, and others discussed secretly recording the president and removing him from office, though they disagree over whether it was serious. From the president's former personal attorney Michael Cohen to former campaign chairman Paul Manafort, the special counsel has either indicted, convicted, or gotten guilty pleas from more than 30 people, including 6 former Trump associates and more than 24 Russian nationals. The president has repeatedly called the investigation a witch hunt.
There's no collusion.
During his confirmation hearings for Attorney General, William Barr took a different position.
I don't believe Mr. Mueller would be involved in a witch hunt.
Despite a team of seasoned prosecutors and a budget of more than $25 million, the special counsel has not prosecuted a conspiracy between the Trump campaign and Russia to steal the election.
Do you have the Mueller report? Do you plan to release the Mueller report publicly?
Under federal regulations, Mueller's report to the Attorney General is confidential. Barr will summarize the findings for Congress and the American people.
But my purpose is to get as much accurate information out as I can.
On Capitol Hill, Catherine Herridge, Fox News.
So, might the Mueller probe and the release of the Mueller report produce any further indictments? Our team at the Department of Justice has just presented that question, and DOJ officials won't answer whether more indictments could result from the completion of the investigation. And they say that question may be addressed very soon. As I told you, they said that the special counsel's principal conclusions could be released as soon as this weekend. The letter says that he may, but officials around the Department of Justice are now hinting that it's a high possibility that more information and all of the details will be coming as soon as this weekend. Analysis is underway now on Fox News Channel, on satellite and cable, and there'll be much more later on your local news on this Fox station. For now, I'm Shepard Smith, Fox News, New York.